Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this special Allen Hour. This hour is a Science Matters event, and for those of you that were here, Science Matters was a thing in 2020 during COVID, and this past year, with the challenges that we all have faced in terms of how we communicate and engage with society about the importance of science. We have been revamping this initiative, and where we discuss why science matters and also matters of science, from funding to trust to how we communicate science to different audiences, how we get out of our tent into the bigger tent that the world is. And of course, we believe science drives progress, drives humanity. We believe in science for good. We believe in open science, open source, and we think that amplifying everything that science is, but also involving folks in the discussion of where science should be, is important, instead of having our own conversations and our own decisions alone. And in today's installment, we will actually explore these between arts and science, and with a very, very special guest, Refik Anadol. And I want to introduce a bit Refik, the person, the artist, the pioneer, the humanitarian. And we're excited that we start actually a collaboration with Refik as an artist in residence here at the Institute. And Refik was born in Istanbul and grew up in Turkey, and then eventually came to study also at UCLA, where many interesting people study. But then he took a creative turn. Before AI and machine learning are what they are today, Refik thought that he should incorporate this into art and to deal with real data from the world. And he actually acquired some AI chops. So he came to Google here and worked with the Google team and became a real AI ML scientist, in addition to being an artist. And then he created a studio, a very interesting studio, and you'll see some of the work, that has artists, AI, machine learning scientists, and also neuroscientists, other type of scientists. So really a melting pot. And one of the exciting things is they have created, using real data, including a lot of biology data, but for example, data of books and a lot of other data, to create experiences, visualizations. Many people say data paintings, but it goes beyond just the visual system. A lot of it is fully embedded. It's data art, sometimes in 3D physical art, data experiences, where we interact with that data in a different way. And I think you will see how disruptive it can be, and we hope it can be disruptive. Refik is now recognized as one of the main AI and artist people in the world. He was just recently in the TIME100 list. But what's amazing, is also the humanity and the human-centric aspect of this in the middle of the AI, besides a lot of interesting things that he'll share with you and we can share and discuss around science here. For example, the efforts he did with tribes in Amazon and setting up blockchain where they could, through AI, based on their art, create other art and actually build schools, villages, and all very transparent in a very different way, very inspiring. And one exciting thing, in the third week of February, I'm holding that date, in LA, there'll be the first really like fully AI-based museum that we know of called DATALAND, and so very exciting. And we hope for two things with these artists in residence. One is that both Refik and his studio and our own scientists feel doubly provoked, and so we hope that in 1 year we're back here in some format, you know, with the scientists and the artists and everyone saying, this is what changed, this is what didn't change for me about this exchange. The other is we're thinking ambitiously how we could create at least one piece. And the idea that's distilling is, you know, we have a lot of data, as you all know, and we're doing models to try to understand that data and visualize that data. And the data are stunning, and just displaying that is amazing. But wouldn't it be cool if you could, when you ask a question from a model, have an experience of how the model is actually thinking to answer the question? So you see the data that it comes out and is visually beautiful, but you also have an intuitive experience about how AI is working. And this, I think, could serve to a different purpose, that, you know, we could try to start to map and have a feeling, even when we say AI for good, AI for bad. We talk about the results, but we don't have, all of us, an intuitive understanding of what's happening, and where people could interact, take parts of the model out and see what could happen. So, and of course, a model like this could be, you know, distributed and could be many portals and places, but maybe we start with one construct that we could come up for proof of concept. So with this said, thank you so much, Refik. It's really a pleasure to have you in person and as a person here sharing your work with us, and you're in for a treat, and there'll be time for Q&A. Thank you, Refik. Please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'm so excited for many reasons, not just only respect and love to your work, but a building with wonderful minds and souls is very rare to be, so I really double excited. Sorry for my heartbeat. I may speak fast, but because this morning started so exciting with many wonderful scientists share their work, neural dynamics group and brain science and many others. So my brain is in a very positively, I feel like in a data heaven or something like that, this building and your research. I prepared this a short keynote to share our work and then share some exciting projects that may inspire, cultivate new worlds. And again, deeply honored to be here, not only me, all my team. I'm originally from Istanbul, that I think the city very much had a huge impact on the thinking about life, about art and science, left and right, like black and white, because the city was really connecting these two continents. And the feeling of like in the Bosphorus every single day, you always like switching between continents is a feeling of you are switching thoughts, switching feelings, switching like really extreme ideas or concepts or feelings. I feel that the city has a huge impact on my work about physical and the virtual worlds. And also, very nerd start for me was an 8 years old, got my first computer. My mom just completely without knowing, I think, just brought home a Commodore. And that was an amazing time to understand that the games can be an amazing escapism, but also creativity can happen. And the same summer, I watched my movie, the first sci-fi movie in my life, and without knowing English, and my just cousin explained that you are like watching a science fiction movie, which I have no idea what does it mean, but I still remember the androids, each other describing what a memory means and what a machine can do with someone else's memory. I couldn't forget that feeling. And as a child, I think we all store our like a beautiful feelings and utopia and the vision and positivity and hope and joy. I always remember this movie, not like a dystopian example, but a movie from the child period that brings all these ideas and feelings. Early works were heavily focused on actually pretty much Blade Runner media architecture. Tried my very best in my undergrad years to like projection map buildings, and I was really obsessed with the architecture as a canvas because I felt that there's so much possibilities when we go beyond concrete, steel, and glass. Well, I thought that the light can be an amazing form of imagination that can take any shape, any form, with the right computer graphics can try many, many experiments. But I think, as Kierkegaard mentioned, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. I felt that 2008 was an important year. A person we just recently lost, Peter Weibel, who opened an institution called ZKM, which was the very first media, arts, and technology institution who was collecting artists like myself working with art, science, and technology. In his class, it's the first time I saw a data. And it was a pure data, maybe you know the software, an amazing open source software that allowed me to like learn a lot about like sensor signals. And I cannot forget that day, how amazing the context of like when data becomes a pigment, without worried about the Newtonian physics, that it can take any shape, any form, and any color. And early studies was more about sound data. I was so inspired by architecture and parametric design, and these are softwares allowed me to understand computer graphics and also understand spatial thinking, how 2D, 3D world can be represented. And then, of course, as an artist's mind, I really just love the idea of what is beyond reality. And I felt that there's so much excitement when we start to reshape and rethink materials. You may see a lot of frames in my work. It's actually a beautiful rejection from 2011. As an artist, I was trying to think it's possible to put a giant frame on a building. That was beautifully rejected. And since then, the code that makes that frame is somehow a beautiful memory that I'm trying my very best to use physical and virtual worlds. But I think the technology itself is an incredibly inspiring start in our lives. I was fortunate to witness the birth of internet, Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, AI, quantum computation. But I really felt that what really inspired me the most is not really just technology, but how it's shaping who we are. And I felt so inspired that as like witnessing this part of the life in our life, I felt that this whole new concept of technology and how it's transforming who we are, and especially this new space, this liminal space between the machine and the latent spaces and places that we cannot perceive, but we know they exist. This feeling was becoming so much inspiration in life. And I thought that I should just deep dive in this field. And I'm so grateful that I moved to Los Angeles at UCLA Design Media Arts Department. And I was so fortunate to work with Casey Rias, Christian Moller, and Jennifer Steinkamp, my literally teachers. They really let me say, go out, Refik. Like, you don't need to be in the school, like from Craigslist, like get some hacky stuff and just find ways of like augmenting city. I love public art so much. I believe it's one of the most inspiring form of art. I believe public art is beyond just a gallery or a museum mindset, which can be anywhere and any time and for anyone and everyone. The first crazy idea was like, what will happen if I go to Los Angeles, the Blade Runner movie, this incredible building of LA Philharmonic, the Frank Gehry, my heroes, also one of the most amazing building. What will happen to projection map this building to give a life, a kind of a neuroscientific, maybe a vision or a skin of a building? Like this type of like feelings were always when I see the building. But of course, when I email LA Philharmonic and Frank Gehry as a student with F1 visa, like of course nobody just cares about your emails as a very early ages. And then I thought that perhaps this can still be an idea, not just a sketch. And 1 year later, I was in Seattle actually. I am literally in Microsoft Research. I had no idea how our felt like this beautiful city connected. And it was incredible to say that I was the only student on the stage. The others are amazing. They're like very much this elevator pitch mindset, so ready, like 8 minutes memorize words. I was just with my shorts, just saying that one day I believe buildings may dream and hallucinate and they can remember. And that was the day I received a wonderful award as a student. And because of regulations, the funding for the research could only go to materials, which went to 4 computers, 4 tables, 4 chairs, and we opened our studio in Los Angeles. So I'm so grateful for this moment. Now we are 30 people, can speak 15 languages and 10 countries. And Los Angeles became our wonderful studio space. And over the last 10 years, we very much focused on light as a material and data as a pigment, and try to create works generally for public spaces, but always the pattern you can see that there's art, science, and technology always in the core, and try to make AI, neuroscience, and architecture somehow come together. But really at the heart of it, it's all about humans, machines, and environments. I found that they all have somehow communicated with each other, and we experiment so much with different data sets, from the cities, from the heartbeat, from the skin conductance, the body temperature, the wind patterns of Bluetooth signals and Wi-Fi. It's just really an exciting last 10 years was full of experiment. What was also very exciting is we only work with our own data on the last 10 years. When I say own data, meaning a communication, collaboration, try to find a reason of that data somehow with some imagination and collaboration comes, which gave us a different scale of thinking and experimenting. And our studio is full of exciting people, like our median age around 27. We have a lot of friends from the AI and data science space and architecture. Computer graphics we all love coding, but the whole common pattern is between computer graphics, architecture, and data science, and also AI. We have also neuroscientists. So last 7 years, Matt is one of also, so much love and respect to his work and to your work. So we learn a lot about the language of neuroscience through our team members, so we don't do any mistakes and understand the medium much better. 15-16 was an important year. I believe that was the year, maybe some of you can remember, that finally AI was coming up, and Blaise, and a wonderful person that I have so much respect to his very early quotes, he was saying, like the invention of applied pigments, printing press, photography, and computers, we believe machine intelligence is an innovation that will profoundly affect art. That was the event in San Francisco. I was probably the only person in the whole event doesn't know how to use AI, but know data. And that was my residency. Started at Google AMI program, 2016 February. Now it feels almost 10 years. And this is Mike Taika, by the way, one of the engineers and wonderful mentor, teach me and my team how to use Google Cloud and very early age of machine learning algorithms, and also the person behind the inception experiments, backpropagation experiments. That's where I felt so much connected with this idea of AI data paintings and AI data sculptures and performances. I think just many artists, we ask this question, what is beyond reality? I don't believe just a machine or an algorithm or a system making almost real things inspires many artists. What inspires us, I think, things sometimes doesn't work. Or you take a system and reinvent and reconnect and hire, and it's just this idea of breaking things and the glitches and errors and mistakes and problems sometimes have much more creative value when making art. And I know it's very different than science and making an absolute amazing research, but it's so interesting to find these spectrums, each part, and really experiment with this idea. But really, on the very core heart of it, I feel like this idea of working with AI last almost 10 years is finding human in non-human. And I think this story really inspired me so much, almost now 10 years ago when I read this, and also my very first time I witnessed how a machine learning algorithm, this is a 6 years long, 9-researcher sorting archive in Istanbul, an open source library called SALT, and on the right side, my very first time running TSNE algorithm and finding out that in 90 minutes, 9 people, 6 years of work can be somehow reshaped. It was an incredible day in the studio. And that's where we designed this exciting library concept, the idea of an archive dreaming in a world where machine can learn, can also show us new ways of seeing and finding both physical and virtual worlds. So this project became a very exciting experiment. And again, 9 years ago, real-time embedding 1.7 million documents, in a very humble GPUs and 4 projectors in one room. But this feeling of flying inside information, finding these new patterns between unseen connectivities was so much fun than going to a library, which I love, and I love so much libraries and I love books so much, but being able to go there and type something that I don't know what it really connects 9 years ago was fascinating. It was really, really fun. And we had lots of scientific also research here. You can imagine for researchers, they have been seeing the archive in a different way that they never thought that exist. By the way, this data set is very unique. Each image has 49 columns of metadata and a fascinating research data that they did for cultural archives. And that's where I felt and also went in love with generative AI algorithms. This again algorithm now feels historic, but pre-diffuse models and like video models, but it was a fascinating way to fly in the latent space. And on the right side, I felt that if one day machine can dream, I hope that doesn't use just a drying pigment, and hopefully it never dries, it always changes like life. So I'm obsessed with fluid dynamics so much, last 12 years. So simply last 9 years, we trained more than 400 AI models and worked with almost 5 billion images and tried to experiment with sound, image, text, and last 4 years with scent molecules. It's really exciting to find ways of these neural networks and their behaviors and find chance and control and create different works. This is like the data sides of maybe visually an exciting world, but I think as Carl Sagan mentioned, imagination will often carry us to the worlds that never were, but without it we go nowhere. The other obsession that I found in our practice was actually data universes. And this morning I saw amazing research from you. The lower dimension reductions and many forms of understanding data is really in the core of our studio. We love so much this way of looking information. So if 500 years ago in Renaissance or in any art movement, artists making physical objects and sculptures, I feel like me as an artist working with data and computing lower dimensions or embeddings and reconstructing these realities in 3 or 6 or 7 dimensions, I don't think it's just so different. It's just new ways of looking information. So this research to me is so exciting that I feel that we had a chance to work with Rumi archives and Mesnevi in 19 languages. We always experiment with maybe same data, but look at data from different perspectives. We love so much XYZ and RGB plotting techniques, and this is Mozart's life and all his repertoire in his life. I don't see them as beautiful data plottings only, but I see them as a sculpture. We can rotate, we can smell, we can 3D print, and we can do many more. One of the amazing part of today's keynote is this topic that I am so much in love, and it's a dream day to me, is because Allen Institute and you all, what you do is so much connected to our body of work as inspiration. 9 years ago, I learned that my uncle diagnosed by Alzheimer's. And since before that, I didn't really know how incredibly important neuroscience is. I'm grateful for Adam Gazzaley from UCSF and Rosalind Picard from MIT Media Lab. I really asked both of them the question, is it possible to find the moment of remembering? But it's not about like what the memory itself, not necessarily breaching the privacy, but just celebrate the moment of remembering. And I was so lucky for 2 years. This is the software, by the way, I use called VVVV. It's a visual programming language. And we have been very fortunate with Adam and his team to like understand, and Neurotrix team, also like how to use EEG machines. And we have around like 800 data sets from the UCLA archives. We were able to like classify this information, and EEG Learn was back in time, was an amazing, maybe still very, very relevant, but a perfect kind of tool that I was able to, with the team, connect these dots together. And then 2 years later, very fortunate to work with Human Connectome project data, this time for Venice Biennale architecture. It was so fun to dive these 6,000 recordings, and we just become so, again, respect to the medium. I'm not a scientist, I just love so much data, but it was so fun to think about information and reconstruct these plotting techniques, find new aesthetics in the studio, and look at this information and 3-dimensionally find aesthetics. I think this may be one of the early DTI hallucinations of a machine. We just experiment to just let machine generate new neural paths that are not real, but looks like real. But it was really fun to experiment how exciting the idea of using emotion as an architectural space. It was for Venice Biennale architecture, and it was fascinating to think that perhaps one day we can use our emotions as an architectural spaces. Inspiration, joy, or hope. Could we do that? And the other part was very exciting is if we can find a way to 3-dimensionally plot this data, what else could we do with that? And that's where we start experimenting with different ways of visualizations. So we love real-time game engines. We love ways of using computer graphics in different ways. And I want to show you a couple of, just 1 second coming now. So Aesthetically, they're incredibly exciting forms, but this was also very exciting. Like, how can we scale these forms and make a sculpture, like reconstruct these like invisible, visible paths, and so much research like this in the studio. Like, you know, data sculptures to me can be really any form, any shape, if we have the right data, right collaboration. So that was something exciting, and this project triggered another research from Lausanne Hospital. While we were like experimenting with these tools, we have, by the way, robots and like a 3D printing techniques, and then we just suspend the sculpture and real-time projection map it by 12-channel projectors. But it was very interesting that it was the time that the Lausanne Hospital friends came just and said, we want to make a very exciting project for UNICEF. And literally a year later, we received 5 children's positive brain activities from the EEG and an fMRI data, and we turned them into this beautiful sculpture, which was auctioned for almost €2 million to fundraise for UNICEF to be sure that the positive data goes back to the positive causes. So we learned that it's not just beautiful, aesthetics is amazing and exciting, but with the right conditions, with the right data sets, with the right partnerships, an artwork has a much bigger impact, which was a great learning for 5 years ago. And the other topic that I'm so excited about, the idea of embedding neuroscience into architecture. I believe that in the near future, like this room, I wish can remember these talks and have a correlation between many other talks. I'm so obsessed with this idea of that one day, I hope, the buildings can remember and find ways of creating new narratives for us. 6 years ago for this project, for the New York datasets of 110 million images of New York, we were able to create these experiments. But this time the idea was entering into dream or a hallucination instead of like just a two-dimensional representation. Try to regenerate these environments in 3D world became a body of work. It's so much fun that as soon as the physical representation of life becomes a canvas, a ceiling, a floor, and a wall, the whole, I think, experience of art changes very, very excitingly. And this body of work started to evolve last 6 or maybe now I would say 9 years, but last 6 years we learned a lot about how to reconstruct these worlds, how to look at the memory of the building and projection back to it, and even find ways of using the data inside the building and the like and experimentations. So the neuroscience is here in a way, maybe not directly, but in a way that imagining the future of architecture may have a way of imagining and remembering and cognitive somehow capacities. And when we work also with these partnerships, it was a project from last year in Turkish Airlines. These are incredibly exciting also experiments done through these wonderful people. These are 4 people never travel in their life. And we were able to work with them and ask them, where would you like them to go? What is their dream destination? And we also think about, I mean, I've been dreaming about this so long, but what is the moment of like opening our eyes to a place that we have never been what we dream for? And could we make a painting from this feeling? So we worked with also Neurocritics team, and they were able to allow us, this wonderful team and the wonderful people, go to their home, and we record them at their home to create the base data sets. And then we also let them to fly and find their like a next wonderful journey in the world. And they opened their eyes, and we recorded these brain signals, and also the skin conductance, body temperature, and other data sets to make an artwork. So this project was really exciting. In Art Basel received a really exciting response. It was fascinating to see that how actually the dream location in our lives or dreams in our life and how they can be represented in a form of painting, but not in a traditional painting, but a way of using data. And the result was something like this, immersive room. So since the childhood, I saw this infinity room so much, like since the Blade Runner and the computation. And it was fascinating. And Kuru is a wonderful Yamanava Page, a shaman and a spiritual leader who was dreaming to go to Japan to meet another spiritual leader. We have an amazing Esther from Kenya, an absolutely wonderful person in love with teeth transplantation, and she was dreaming Istanbul Grand Bazaar. I think she saw in a couple of movies. It was a fascinating emotional journey to find connections that these wonderful ways of using science and art and technology. And also sonification of data. So what you hear is also, we love data sonification. We find ways of creating harmonies and new ways of seeing and hearing. And the other research was in the pandemic, like we all start wearing this, I guess, masks first time, and we were just receiving amazing Smithsonian data. I mean, I can around 75 million flowers, an incredibly exciting time. Pandemic started. I was in the studio alone looking at our works. I was just looking at, like, we could hear the somehow mission dreams. We could see the mission dreams, but is it possible to smell them? And that was a very interesting research started, and now almost 5 years ago, here I am in Geneva, in Firmenich, one of our wonderful friends, who has, I think, 400,000 sand molecules in their archives. And they were just researching about how to, like, find this artistic endeavor and letting and kind of a GAN algorithm train on the sand molecules, another GAN algorithm train on the flowers, and somehow have a conversation and come up with, like, new molecules, safe and secure without, like, being too dangerous. And it was a fascinating research, turned into this very hacky device, but it looks weird, but it's really healthy and happy machine. So we have 14 sand molecule pipes that you can see, a machine on the, like, lower right you can feel, and when you open these doors, it was real-time transforming possible sand molecules based on the type of the flora, and it was just real-time creating kind of a generative sand. It was so fun to think that when I think I kind of a living archive, a living library. I don't know the feeling of it, but it was so near future experience. When you open these doors, there's this beautiful sonification of nature, but also smelling and seeing. And just 1 year before that, the project maybe you remember, I have been dreaming so much, 2018 was also happened. Another wonderful Google Arts and Arts and Culture project. This time, LA Philharmonic said, for 100 years, we'll love to write a letter to the next 100 years, not by just being beautiful fireworks. We want to be remembered by recognizing our 100 years. So we sent mail to every single musician estate, Mahler, Stravinsky, Mozart, you can name it. We asked permission to use 100 years of all the recordings of LA Philharmonic. And then we were able to, I think now, 7 years, I feel like very early, but we can hear very early AI outputs that we have been experimenting when the building is dreaming the archive. So that was a very exciting challenge 7 years ago, only 10 people studio with 42 projectors in one of the most challenging compound curves and a titanium surface that requires a lot of thinking for refraction. It was a really beautiful challenge. And a recent one was Gaudi's Casa Batlló in Barcelona. This time we were able to try the idea of a living architecture. We use real-time weather data and also the cloud computation. And in real time, we were able to capture the weather conditions and reflect it back to our artwork. But what was much beautiful is not digital idea, but taking this concept and projection mapping the wonderful UNESCO heritage building. Still, Barcelona is very unique, I think. Like, there's this football culture, love culture. So I want to show you a quick video, what happens if a real-time kind of a data meets with these wonderful buildings of Gaudi. And what was really, to me, exciting was a public art and the power of it. And we received around 65,000 people, and I heard that it's larger than a Taylor Swift concert. And apparently it's a benchmark for the city of Barcelona. So I think it's possible to make the public art as powerful as it can be with the right conditions of using AI to remember the heroes instead of creating just a mushy data sets. And this also grew over different buildings. This was our big challenge 2.5 years ago, the opening of the Sphere in Las Vegas. We were challenged by the opening artist and find a way to create an eco-rectangular projection mapping of our data sculptures. And Yutu and Dernanowski was creating an amazing work inside. It was fascinatingly, inspiringly challenging how to think that this beautiful 500 feet like diameter giant data sculpture and find ways of running real time. And 2.5 years ago, real-time world and this data and this scale is really, really challenging, you can imagine. So we have lots of exciting things to share more about this beautiful architectural world. And lastly, the work that I think we have been doing has been truly affected by something beautiful happened 2 years ago. We were so honored to be invited by MoMA, Museum of Modern Arts in New York. And I don't know how much you know, but MoMA 8 years ago, put their entire archive of artworks on GitHub. And they were dreaming that their collection, which is for 200 years of 138,000 artworks, incredible pioneers from across every category you can imagine, including games like Pac-Man or Mario, and it's an incredible archive. And super honored to get this beautiful invitation from the Paolo Antonelli and Michel Coe, the curators, and we were able to create this artwork. So basically, the MoMA archive is incredibly well organized, and our challenge was somehow, how can we use information and reconstruct the idea of a thinking brush without truly and honestly not going back to the original work that already exists, but imagine an artwork in the archive itself dreams, but doesn't repeat itself, doesn't copy or just create just another work of existing work, but find a new vocabulary, a language. It was so exciting to experiment again generative algorithms, but this time we have to write our own kind of GAN algorithm. It has to be 4K resolution, it has to be real-time running, but also it has to interact with the world real-time. So it was not just a recorded experience. And what we tried here is with the question of what happens. We as humans, we understand art in categories, painting, photography, sculpture, and cinema. And what happens, we don't really use that category and find an unsupervised way of letting machine learn. And on top of that, what was amazingly exciting, a microphone and a camera for the moment, and also the weather station has been used. These are demystified ways of, also this is the same software VVV that I mentioned, that I've been using for 6 years with my team. We love to demystify machine decisions. We love to show what type of mechanics of a machine has and how this can impact the decision of a machine. And also, thanks to Jensen Huang and the NVIDIA team, they donate 2 DGX stations. One was computing the machine's mind, and the other was me as an artist trying to communicate with that output. So it's a true human-machine collaboration, because sometimes people think that that's just like the machine does something. There's a lot of an artist work also exists when working with AI. And the project received unexpectedly a lot of attention. We received approximately 3 million people. In the 200 years of MoMA, one of the highest audience number, and especially age variation was incredible. And it was fascinating 1 year, every 4 times extended, and the work was start to get a lot of attention from the art critics and people with no, data cannot be art, or art, and all type of voices start to come together. And that's, I think, where art happens, because that moves the audiences, and that moves, I think, the critics, that moves the intellectual context of the work, but also and how the museum and becomes a place for all these discussions. And what I'm so grateful about the project is also became the first generative AI work in the collection. So the work went back to the collection where it dreams, and I feel it just keeps going dreaming. And after all this, we felt that there's some incredible world of imagination. Working with MoMA, Guggenheim, and Pompidou, deeply honored, but it's really hard medium. To make this medium happen, you need years of work, a lot of communication, a lot of work. And as an artist working with all those, I found that what will happen to other artists, what will happen to this medium, and how can we push forward this medium. That's where we think about the world's first AI museum. that I will hope to join the forces in some capacity. And we announced it last year in another Frank Gehry building. I have a very short, quick teaser for you, a little bit action. Sorry for it. So it's a very exciting challenge to imagine truly a new form of institution from scratch, artist-led, and really me and my partner Efsun, we just started this journey as fascinatingly challenging, but fascinating, lots of learning in just 1 year design, 1 year construction. But we didn't want to open our museum with just another AI research. We thought that we should just work a little bit harder than a normal, maybe artistic exploration and find ways of doing a new research. I love nature so much. I hope you all love nature so much. I believe nature is the most important thing we have. I think nature is a form of AI, and I don't think we just understand yet. And I think that like Monet inspired from the water lilies, I don't think it's so different for artists to inspire from nature through AI. But we thought that we should start something maybe else without any other cultural patterns. What happens if we just use nature data? So it took 1 year to ask these wonderful people one by one permission and receive 500 million images of nature. And on top of that, what we found out that there is not enough data in certain conditions. And with the wonderful support from our Google friends and a very, very exciting project very soon also coming, we were able to fund 16 more rainforest research. All will be open source, like your wonderful research. And we will be able to put all the missing data sets we found from the 16 different rainforests for the first exhibition. These are like sound recordings, ambient sound recordings, LiDAR scannings, and many exciting pigmentation of some beautiful flora, fauna, and fungi research will be able to published to be used for researchers. But what was also exciting is we fine-tune our first model. We train a model from scratch with image data. And also we have pretty much everything running in the cloud. By the way, it's also ready to go, to use. It's hacky, not perfect, not like a great service of something professional. But we will, so we call this system Living Encyclopedia. A museum has its own encyclopedia that you can have an interaction. So I'll explain why it's so slow, but I'll explain. So we also demystify our energy usage. So we are using renewable energy cloud, Google Cloud from the Oregon. So it's not the fastest, again, compute, but it at least answers excitingly right answers. And for the realism, we didn't just think about artistic exploration, but we work with the pretty much scientific domain data, and we work almost 6 months, one by one, for 2.2 million species names, and try to match them. I think that's where the difference of this an AI model. Again, not artistically, maybe used for, but scientifically, a lot of correlation. And we have 250,000 bird songs from the Amazonia for the exhibition. It was fascinating to help also scientists to find a way to sort the data so they can hear and they can kind of map the data to the different locations. And we also have a text-to-video model, which is not like the recent amazing research, because we want not 8 seconds, 10 seconds. Art making is sometimes like infinite. So these are our ways of text-to-video model, which is kind of infinitely can create these beautiful creatures, and they can blend each other. And these are all the Amazonian flowers that can go a lot of time. And our last model trained last year at GTC also, thanks to Jensen and his team. And it was also real-time working. You can see me like in conversations with the model. It was a very stressful 1 hour on the stage. The most hackiest GPUs and the most hackiest systems in front of 15,000 people. But it just worked. When it worked, we thought that we can now use this to make art, hopefully. And lastly, I would like to connect this moment to something much different than a technology. This research that I mentioned about nature is not just a beautiful data or a scientific endeavor or respecting only nature through data, but also through these wonderful people that you mentioned, Yavanava people. When I think about nature, I just don't think about what we have in this part of the world, but what we don't know really well in the rainforest of the world. So this is Nishiwaka, chief, and the chief Putani. They are the Yavanava people, 1,200 people. They inspired the movie Avatar. They're not well known in many reasons, but I feel that I have been very well connected for 5 years. To go to forest, it takes approximately 34 hours from Los Angeles. But when you land in this village, you are incredibly surrounded by one of the most amazing people on earth. They become my mentor, my teachers, and I've been understanding nature through their eyes, their souls, their spirituality, their inspiring world of understanding. They live 117 years. They're very happy where they are. But when I ask about really what else is missing in these wonderful communities, I learn a lot. And that's when I learned that there's a lot can be done for people who are living for us in the forest, protecting it, our lungs, and most likely also our hearts of humanity. So this is Chief Nishiwaka next to me, holding like a real-time data sensor. And the chief had a dream of opening his own kind of museum in Amazonia, a library, a culture center, where he can host all the other tribes of the forest. It's a very hard thing to get together in the forest, by the way, and there's not enough space, infrastructure. And by the way, he and his wonderful young Yavanava artist loves AI, remarkably open-minded people. And I just asked, then why don't we just collaborate and create artwork? And they said, we are happy to create some paintings. You use AI, and let's come up with, and this is, by the way, their ideas. I'm not saying that that's their like ways of thinking about communication and collaboration. These are their paintings. They are called canoes. That's what they can see. Again, it's not our ways of understanding forms or contemporary or modern culture. Very different cultural thinking about the forms and colors and patterns. But they can only draw 12 of them. We use AI and then generate 1,000 unique artworks. And the young Yavanava chief was able to open his own blockchain wallet, all transparent, like open source science, open source finance. And the chief just allowed us to train the model with their permission. We create this collection and raise $3 million on the blockchain. And with that funding, we built the first village and the first Amazonian university. It was a fascinating learning to use and collaborate and join the forces. Like today, I want to finish this talk with the words of Chief. He says, it's new times we are living now. Time for forgiveness, time for love, time for spirituality. It's time for humanity to look back to the origins, to the earth, to our hearts, to learn, to love, and respect one another, to make alliances, join the forces. Thank you very much for listening. I'm 4 minutes late, so sorry for...
It's good.
Oh, I think you left us all speechless, Refik. Having said that, we have about 15 to 20 minutes for questions because I don't know, like you might have many questions. But since I have a mic on, I'm gonna ask the first question.
Oh.
That's okay. Rui, I wanted to ask you because you mentioned Science Matters when we started talking about this. Can you tell us more about this initiative and really why having an artist like Refik is such an important collaboration, especially in that parallel between creativity in science and creativity in art?
So, in terms of how could we reach different audiences or even the same audiences in different ways. There's a lot to explore. And I think some of you may have felt an emotional or goosebump moment during the talk, seeing something I felt. Is there a way to make people feel this about scientific data? Is there a way to bring new understanding? I mean, one of the most amazing things was when our team met Refik's team, and they're like, hey, can we use actually your code for our visualization because we're struggling here? And some of our teams, like in cell science, have hired people from media to come into science. So this idea, first, that science matters for everyone, and it needs to be much more collaborative, but also we haven't maybe explored all the ways we can talk about science and even be transparent about science. I think including how a model works or how much science costs, how many people are involved, etc., is an opportunity to and hopefully to reach different audiences.
Before I turn it over to everyone, because this is a full conversation with all of us, I want to ask you, Refik, you've met with our scientists in the past. You mentioned when you were speaking about how many wonderful things you saw today. What has been a key takeaway when you think about the kind of art you do and the kind of science we do?
I mean, so many. I can't explain the joy or all day met with wonderful and see incredible data visualization and the purpose. And I mean, first of all, I have so much respect to your work because from open science, from open source, from like many perspectives, it's a fascinating mindset for artists to like imagine the world. But also, if artists has a tendency to learn more about the science, I mean, it's fascinating. Like the data heaven, I don't know how to explain this, but it's so exciting. But also how people explain this morning, not only their work, but I think it's just collaboration feeling. Like in arts, it all happens a lot in the studio every day. Like, you know, when you're a small studio, like you feel this very much. But this morning, in all this time, I felt the same thing. But also, I know that your work is not just maybe for the science community. I feel like using art as a form of storytelling, using art as a way of like communicating sometimes very complex topics. Sure, now we have AI to understand complex topics, but I still believe that storytelling and emotional context, like feeling the meaning and the purpose, generate novel artistic experiences also possible. So I felt that this, since our collaboration, and thanks to Simone also, that since the first email I remember, like with Ryu, and like every Zoom call was a new brain, like this neural fire, like oh my God, this building is full of neural fires everywhere, and seeing the machines and then how you scan I mean, there's everywhere. I can't stop saying where everywhere there is some beautiful inspiration.
I don't know if anyone told you, but we have a lot of data.
So that's a beautiful challenge, looks like.
I want to open it up. Raise your hand. We've got one right back here. One question.
Thanks. Hi, really exciting stuff, Refik. And this is a really exciting tool for science communication. I think bringing data visualization to as many people as possible is super exciting and definitely what we're about here at the Allen. And you've talked about specifically how passionate you are about nature as well. And so my question is, what is your plan to mitigate the environmental impact of the AI that you're using in DATALAND and elsewhere?
Yes, I mean, one of the largest challenges, Ivan, I was, again, I wish I understand more about how those clusters works, but I'm just guessing people throwing gigawatt. I'm just guessing those are giant resources has to be found somewhere, which doesn't exist, I guess. So I don't know how the giants take a step, but I know that our dear friends at Google Cloud and DeepMind, I had a very dear communication and really asked that we want to make this AI system not fast. We have only 4,000 people using. We don't need scale. We don't need to worry about the other hyperscalers worries. How can we make it humble, just using sustainable energy And how can we make it? So it's possible. Here's a system, here's a technique, here's like, by the way, if you go to the website, you can clearly see how much compute we have, in which conditions. When we fine-tune a model, you can feel it. Like, I think 2 months ago, you will see a peak, humbly, just, I think, 48 GB. So nothing is really dangerous level, I guess. And at DATALAND in the museum, we are literally like kind of using a way of a theater energy. Like, I hope that we need opera theaters and cinema, so it's not really breaching that type of energy. And the entire museum is running in the Oregon cloud, on the Google cloud, so that we know that how much energy and sustainable energy it's using. So we balance this. Again, only 150 people maybe in a given time there, so we know how much they can compute. We have only 4,000 or 5,000 researchers using the platform, very humble, very manageable. So when you're in the humble world, I think the worlds are easy to maintain.
Okay. Do you, follow-up question, if I could. Do you feel a responsibility given the use of these tools, despite your project specifically, not, using a ton of energy like these other, some of these other AI models? Do you feel a responsibility to advocate on the behalf of a more sustainable future for AI?
100%.
For everyone else that's using.
I have a very different view than many people living in the Amazonia for months, living with the people who are protecting nature, seeing the world through their eyes. I have a very, very different perspective there. But I wish I have more power to do more things, but as an artist, I feel that the best way is to just message it. That's why we put the system with demystification. I think it may be the only AI service, as far as I know, you can go and find what happens. So that's the way of. So I don't think we are responsible for actions, but I think we are responsible for reactions. So as an artist, my reaction was the platform.
And maybe you could inspire people also in that, and us as scientists to actually be more sustainable. I had asked this question earlier, and I learned that the actual DATALAND is going to run on the LA power grid with a normal power of a building, and I was very surprised because I was asking Refik, do you need to have a nuclear generator or something? And he's like, no, like not like that. We actually train, and then it's fancy. It's how many projectors now?
We have 1.2 billion pixels to deal with.
But still, he explained a bit like it's like a very fancy immersive theater. But I think actually the demonstration of being able to do meaningful things at a sustainable level, like by actually doing and people experiencing it, can be like in that provocation could be an important thing, right?
And also just be super honest. Like I'm grateful, almost multi-million followers on social media. You can really feel the pulse of the public when you look at your DMs. So when I look at them, there is a world so happy, so hopeful, and so ready to use AI in the best way possible. And there's a world with hysteria and fears and like truly reflecting the reality. So when you see both worlds, I think, of course, the both worlds is reality. So my hope is really, as an artist in my own capacity, like find ways of artists to train their own models and use their own data sets and really humble experiments. I think if we can think the world of AI should have, I guess, tiers. I'm sure next year there will be an AI with the price of a car, most likely. But there should be also AIs with a humbly, like people like myself or artists can experiment in a lab, in an atelier. So that's like the tone we are trying to find out, that it's not just one thing for all, but maybe many things, thinking brushes to invent, basically.
And I don't know, Grace is not here, but the example she was giving today, the type of model she's trying to learn, mechanistics to learn how the models work, where maybe you don't need to run the whole model. So she was giving an example, to classify horses, and immediately you can go, things with 4 legs. So that actually means massive savings for great models like in data, where you could do with many less GPUs and much less energy, equally good classification by having understanding of how the models would work and having a different way. And even, for example, I mean, another thing going on energy and effort, how much data do we need to collect and what data? And if you have a model that tells you, you know, imagine we're sampling only in one corner of the universe of the immune system, but it tells you, no, pick 1,000 samples, but from these, and you'll have a good model. So I think there's a work there that even in science, to make it more sustainable, faster, more affordable, because then anyone could ask questions. You don't need to have this amount of money. Could be an interesting thing, exploration. And part of this project of people understanding the AI thing, I was thinking maybe we could be transparent about how much energy it's using at its time. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
That will be amazing to experiment. It's very open, very happy, like your science.
Thank you. That was an amazing presentation. I was so struck during your Gaudi performance that almost everyone was filming it on their phones. And I thought of the painting early of us all being sucked into our phones. I just wondered if you could speak on, what are your thoughts on that, of people engaging with your art sort of through the phone?
I think it's really, I think art is really for anyone and everyone. And I think that it is societal responses. I see the same thing in some like audiovisual performances. Friends at LA Phil mentioned similar things. So that means that probably across many different mediums that there's a reaction. I mean, I personally would love the retina experience, and like, you know, the sensorial experiences should be more first to remember and then maybe machine memories. But maybe life logging culture changed so much that people can only be present through the eyes of a machine or ears of a machine, which is interesting. But I feel like, on the other hand, the works are, like at Guggenheim Bilbao last week, our work just closed. We received almost 1 million people in 30 years. Guggenheim's like the largest audience on the younger age that the museum receives. So there's something exciting about that part. There's also one solution we have in our exhibitions. We put a always process video, by the way. I mean, I'm sure this can be next level with you, but the process videos help so much for public. Our show last year in Jeffrey Deitch Gallery in Los Angeles, so thanks to Leonardo DiCaprio came to our show, and suddenly the whole city started to come. But the thing is, in TikTok, I was watching people that the most viral videos were reading voiceover the process video wall. So the good news is, even the like people seeing the lens of a camera was reading the wall text. So at least it's educative. So not like just.
Can I do a follow-up, if you don't mind? So in this idea that the buildings would remember and things would remember. So I've noticed in my lifetime a little bit of cultural change, even in my education, very memory-based, because you can access to much more seek information-based. And I mean, when I saw the Mona Lisa for the first time, most people for those 10 seconds were facing back the Mona Lisa and taking a selfie. But imagine, like in a lecture, when it's recorded, and you can get the notes later, you're paying more attention and not transcribing. Do you think if we go to the next level of a cultural, imagine I'm going to use your words, the building would remember, or there's a way to re-experience that experience. Do you think all of a sudden we could culturally learn to go back? It's like, I'm going to leave the moment because there will be a memory of the thing. You know what I mean? Like almost, I mean, you talked about plays and yourself, and it's fascinating. You're some of the people that in your day-to-day life, when you're having fun, almost use the least technology I've ever seen. You almost run. And so is there a way to get freed from that, you think, via the augmentation? I mean, sorry.
It's an amazing question. I hope so. I mean, the bandwidth we can gain. I mean, there's just like probably the anxiety of missing something in life.
It's the FOMO, yeah. It's like,
you know, replacing that feeling with being present, and I think a fascinating value of life that I think has a huge value of it, but I don't know how to solve it, like which machines and what type of systems and what social media does that. I don't know, but because current systems are on the opposite side of
Yes.
cognitive responses. But I felt something very interesting, and in some of our exhibitions, I have been receiving personal notes from across the world, and there are really moments that some people that I mean hundreds of, by the way, not just 10, like one person said that I lost my loved ones recently and I felt so much connected with this feeling and I stayed there for 4 hours. I said MoMA, I hug someone, I have no idea who that person is. For a couple of minutes, I just hug and I just connect and learn that the person went through a like there are these very beautiful moments when the work touched the mind and soul, I guess, at the same time. I don't know what is that. I don't want to also learn about that feeling. It's good that the serendipity feels very honest and open. But when that happens, I don't think this is happening to the people with the phones. It's happening with the people who are present with their all senses.
It's important that we need to be present.
Compared to human artists, a lot of generative AI, especially visual results, really are emotionally flat. And you're using generative AI to generate visuals with an emotional resonance. And I was kind of curious what your approach is and what how you do that, because that's quite unusual.
Thank you very much. By the way, amazing presentation is this morning. I learned a lot about your work too. So I feel like, there's, I think, 2 reality check to me. When we look at these incredible image, video, sound, text models, I think they are the breakthroughs. And it's very hard to make a breakthrough on top of that system as an artist. Maybe scientists could do amazing things, but when it comes to art context, it's really hard. And I felt this many years ago with Ian Goodfellow, that when he invented the GAN models, it was not so different. Like that conversation between 2 models and capturing that, like, discriminator and the generator and that dialogue. I was so in that very basic 101s of thinking that I never left that behind. So that idea of like mechanics of the system should be a part of the breakthrough of an art making. So now there's a tendency of creating beautiful images with the models, but I don't believe they are the art. They are beautiful sketches, but I think art should happen in the minds of an artist or creator that takes it to next level. A level that is not only just machine, but maybe human-machine collaboration. I never feel comfortable when just output comes from any models. I'm always like sensitive, always double, triple, I don't know how many times, like look at from all the perspectives, and then really think about, okay, where do now artistic computation comes? I feel like machine computation and artistic computation just somehow has to connect, and artist needs a voice, a vocabulary, beyond the just beautiful prompting or just whatever context engineering. There is a lot of human agency needed on top of those systems. I hope artists can create their own mini models that's coming to same places. Maybe those outputs goes to somewhere else, and that place that does, this is, I think, very important for artists to exchange thinking brushes.
I think I actually want us to be present together and have some time to continue this conversation. We're going to continue the conversation in the atrium. We have a lovely reception where we can all to continue talking about this amazing work that's being done. And thank you for bringing this.
Thank you for inspiration, Dave. So thanks so much. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. I'm so happy to meet you all. I'm so excited. And happy to host in Los Angeles, really. I'm just meaning it.
We'll rent an electric bus to go to DATALAND.